Welcome back to Two Who's Review. I'm Alex,
I'm Fitz.
and today we're looking at the second episode of Series 15 of Doctor Who, Lux, aka Russell T Davies finally wrote the episode that every Doctor Who fan has thought about at least once.
Could I take the reins briefly for a second here, Cuff, just
Yeah,
to
go for it.
break the ice? Now, as you know, I'm pretty decent at singing. We were in high school musicals together. We've been in plays together. You've heard me sing. You know that I
Of
can
course.
sing a tune or two. With that in mind, I like to sing a little victory song for you.
Uh-huh. Great. You got your points.
I'm gonna take those points now. Granted, they could be snatched away from me at the 11th hour. This could be some really insane puzzle box thing where it's like, oh no, he actually wasn't a member of the Pantheon, and it was a whole different thing. But yeah, think I'm gonna pretty safely take those points now.
Yeah, and
God knows they may be the only ones I get.
Well, I mean, in a similar vein, like, because this episode didn't veer as hard into animation as anyone thought it would, I don't think I saw any little mouse ears pop up at any point.
No.
So my big swing is unfortunately for naught, which means so far, congratulations, you are in the lead for the prediction tally.
Hooray.
But what I was talking about with, every Doctor Who fan has thought about at least once. So surely, at a certain point, every person who's watched Doctor Who has had the thought, what if TARDIS land in real world?
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely had that thought as well.
And I feel like this is probably the most, like, normal way that concept can be done. And even saying that, there's not a lot that's normal about this.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of planning on talking about this later, but I guess now that we're talking about the meta element of it, I'll do this now. So I have feelings about it. Still, I think a little bit mixed, but mostly positive, and more positive than I did the first time I watched the episode. So I think, yes, that fantasy of, ooh, what if the Doctor landed in the real world, and then especially if you're here, it's like, wow, what if I help the Doctor solve the mystery, and I can tell him, hey, Doctor, hello, Christopher Eccleston, Ninth Doctor, be careful. When that Selene woman shows up again in one of the last episodes of the season, that's gonna get pretty wacky, you know. So that's true. I think when I first saw that bit, I laughed quite a lot because I just thought, oh no, this is okay. We're doing this. This is I mean, it's about as weird as some of the strangest things on Doctor Who we've seen, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. But anyway, so I was watching it, and I saw the sort of the funny and heartfelt, but also pretty cringy way the fan base was portrayed. That itself didn't bother me. I think I was just more nervous by thinking, oh, are we actually in, the real world? Are we?
Yeah.
What the fuck are we going to do here? Is this a whole thing that we're going to be dealing with throughout this episode? The episode almost basically backtracks then, but I was kind of glad that it did, because we go back to, actually they're figments of Lux's imagination, and that I think made it better because it gave it quite a bit of emotional weight, and it wasn't just a cheap joke, right? It was more, I guess, parody than satire in that sense.
Yes.
Like there's a bit of affection to the fan base, because of course, why the fuck wouldn't there be? It's not like I don't know, an Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode or something, but so it redeemed itself a fair bit, and even when they came back in the end, I get that it's easy to interpret that as just a funny joke. It's like, oh, they didn't die, they get to watch more Doctor Who. But I think there was a bit of thought and investment that went into the second time they showed up, because you do feel a fair bit there, whether they exist now in some sort of strange imaginary universe, because Lux is now light, like literally light. I don't know, but it works well enough. It's not something that
Well, it's
bothers me
also
terribly.
it's also consistent with how we know the Pantheon works, right?
Yes,
Like
yeah,
the
it's like
reward
the
at the
leftover
end.
magic. Yeah,
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
Um, look,
At the very
I
least,
feel,
good lord, that could have been so much worse.
yeah, and if you're gonna do the meta break the fourth wall, the Doctor talks to Doctor Who fans. This is the way you do it without breaking the world forever and having
Yeah,
more the Doctor and the Companion having this weird existential crisis about what is free will, blah blah blah. Like this is
and
the right way to do it to sort of sidestep all of that.
yeah. I will say though, the one bit that did confuse me, and I don't know whether this is just, I don't know, because they were in, the weird imaginary world. They like being told that these people knew how the episode was going to end, and potentially that meaning they could have helped them. They were remarkably calm about that. They weren't saying, "Hey, can you please fucking help us with this monster?" They're just like, "Oh, yeah, that's so weird and wacky, isn't it?"
Well, it's not long after that is brought up that we then have to grapple with the mortality of these NPCs, which I think takes a
I
bit
mean,
more.
that's true. That's true. But I just that element I think is just a little bit weaker on a second watch because you'd think, I don't know, purely from the angle of character consistency, I would imagine that both companions would be a little more urgent about it. Don't get me wrong, I don't doubt that the Doctor would kind of have a bit of fun there and say, "Oh, Blink is your favorite, not this episode or this episode that I was in personally." But I just, in retrospect, I think it's just a little weird that there wasn't more um, urgency, and I get that it's swept away very quickly because we realize all these people aren't real. Um, but for me personally, those small moments kind of matter. So, yeah, those are my basic thoughts on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, little peek behind the curtain here. I when the episode came out, I was spending a lovely little birthday weekend with my partner. She recently turned 26. We had a bit of we did a whole thing basically. We had a long birthday celebration. It took about 4 days. And of course, the episode for us here aired on Easter, which is another wrinkle. So I've been incredibly busy the last couple of days, and day of recording, which I'm going to try and make it the same day that the episode comes out for us, for you, the viewers, rather, is the first time I got to watch it. Unfortunately, I didn't do the sensible thing and stay off social media, which
Oh
means
dear.
that by the time I went to watch this, I already knew that there was going to be a meta element to this episode.
You fool! By the way,
I
Cuff,
know.
thank you so much for bragging about you actually having a life. Thanks very much for that.
Well, what having a life, not being spoiled on Doctor Who can say which is better?
That's the ultimate struggle.
Exactly, yeah. So here's the
Oh
thing.
dear, I don't have time to dig into that, but anyway.
No. But anyway, so I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I didn't know what form it took, but I was fairly certain, based on the trailer footage we'd gotten, it would have been something to do with the way that they get trapped in the animation.
Mm.
And also I'd heard in advance that this episode was apparently very, very good. You and Sam in our group chat, basically, as soon as the episode finished airing, you guys were both like, that was very, very good.
Mm.
I believe Sam's specific words were, yeah, that was rad as fuck.
Yeah.
So it's probably a combination of those two things that have now left me going, yeah, that was good. And that
I'm
being
actually
basically.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, here's the thing. Like, I think that a huge element of the meta section is the shock factor of it even being there in the first place, right? It's this whole, oh my god, this is a huge swing that the show is taking. It's pretty tongue in cheek. But it's also like, it's massive.
Yeah.
And when you don't
just
have
conceptually, sure.
Exactly, yeah. And when you don't have the surprise element of that, you are kind of left with, okay, what narrative purpose did all of that serve in the first place?
And that's not the only moment that that was like that in the story. We'll get to it obviously, but
well, yeah,
yeah,
because I was
I like what it does
as I'm looking at
thematically,
it,
but
sure,
like just the raw emotion of realizing, oh, these people aren't real and they're basically going to die, and now we have to deal with that. And this is just one of the things that the Doctor has to encounter on their adventures. But it doesn't, because even the bit of like, oh, because they sort of reveal how the plot ends, but not really, so that doesn't even really have a big thing with it, a big meaning for the episode, so it seems a
yeah,
bit out of place. Admirable, to be sure,
hmm
but perhaps this episode, as with a lot of Doctor Who stories, the sum is greater than the whole. And I know I say that a lot with this show, but genuinely, I think this story is it works with that idea
well,
quite a
yeah,
lot.
and when you've got like 15 minutes in your story where it's like the Doctor's trapped in film and has to try and break out, and you spend like 2 minutes in the animated world,
Mm.
and then you then like they're getting 3Dified, then you got the continuity segment, and then the meta bit, and then you're left with all of that, and at the end of all of that, having seen it all, you're sitting there, or at least I was, and going, I really wanted more Mr. Ringading in this.
Yeah. I was actually talking to Hadley a few days ago about this, and she said the
Okay,
same thing. That,
great.
one,
Okay,
she wanted more Mr. Ringading and just more animation. Like, that was the big selling point, and it
yeah.
didn't quite deliver on it. Now, I'll counter that by saying this. Even ignoring some of the meta stuff, I'm still pretty satisfied with what the episode gave me. Yes, it would have been really fun to see more of Mr. Ringading in the animated world, but I wasn't too bothered that this is what we got. I mean, I don't know, because I've seen. Actually, no. Here's a good way of describing it. It with Mr. Ringading, it's almost like a Hannibal Lecter thing in which his presence is so potent, and it's such a great performance, and he's such a charismatic villain that even though he's not on screen for a long time, he still has an impact. Now, I don't know how deliberate that was, and I can certainly understand people who think, yeah, I definitely want more of this character and more of the world, but again, using the Hannibal Lecter example, I'm relatively satisfied with how the villain worked out.
I don't know.
That being said, the
'Cause
meta thing and the animated thing it doesn't all fit together.
it doesn't,
Um,
and I'll tell you what else. I think you can achieve the same thing that you do by pulling the Doctor and Companion into the film that you can with, say, Mr. Ringading bringing other film characters and cartoons to life and having them chase the TARDIS team through the cinema for the same amount of time.
in fact,
That gives you more of what you're there for. It
mm,
gives you more animation, which apparently was overseen or at the very least helped out by some of the people who worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which makes so much
yeah,
sense.
that makes a lot of sense. Because the animation on Mr.
It's
Ringading
fucking
specifically
amazing.
is so smooth.
It's so
It's so
fantastic.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, also, I just realized something, and maybe it wouldn't help because it would just be retreading old material, but if you want to look at a meta kind of episode of Doctor Who that deals with a world within a world, Carnival of Monsters, and arguably that did that better than this story did.
You also have the late season Capaldi episode where the whole thing takes place inside a simulation, and like it's basically the characters figuring out that they're in the Matrix and getting a message to the real Doctor that something is coming. Like that's also kind of the same thing where we do get
Yeah,
it's not nearly as meta as this, but there is that element of, oh, I'm not real.
yeah,
There's a different that whole thing.
yeah. It's the existential crisis that's coming
Yeah,
at the core of
exactly,
both.
exactly. And again, like I just really wanted the show to do more with, because like when you think about it, Ring a Ding or Lux isn't based in cartoon or film or
Mm.
TV. He's based in
Yeah,
light.
yeah.
So I think that I don't know. I just think that there would have been a much better through line with that if you have Mr. Ringading summon animated minions to do
Sure.
just craziness while Ringading figures out how to become real.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about it like just being light, I mean, it's a cinema. It obviously has other lights in it, so you wonder,
yeah.
could they have incorporated that somehow? If he was like, I don't know, even at the beginning, right? Like he travels through moonlight, and sure, but what if the moonlight, like a beam of it hit a lamp or something, and then it hit another lamp, and then it finally went into the celluloid? That I know that sounds a bit convoluted, but you know what I mean. Like they could have done more
Well, I mean,
with
the way it happens here is that it bounces off of a spoon, so that's not too convoluted.
True, true. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I understand certainly what you mean about it being, if not disappointing, then not where it could be, I guess.
I mean, I still appreciate the end result. I still like the
Yeah, yeah,
episode. I like what
yeah,
it's
same.
doing with what's there. I like
Yeah,
everything before. I mean, I adore everything before the meta stuff starts.
yeah,
How they, the very brief exploration of 1952 politics and how it handles these themes for a similar time frame, I think, anyway, so more elegantly and gracefully than Rosa did in series
mm.
11. Just, you know,
I
great
agree
stuff
with
there.
that for that section. The latest scene, not so much, but again, we'll get to
The later
that.
scene, not so much, but that scene is like it stands out because of that by its own admission, right?
Yeah,
It's meant to
true.
stand out
And
to signal
it's
that
not literally the whole episode that's that's kind of, not quite achieving what it wants to.
exactly, yeah, and again, like the fact that it is so over the top in the racism aspect of it, it's
Mm,
the very clue that the Doctor needs to be like, oh, okay, this isn't real. So, I don't really fault that section too much on that front.
right.
It's the kind of thing where it's like, for the briefest moment, you you are tricked into thinking that they've been released, right? Because it's pulling on uh, some like slight unease that's been drawn on from the start of the
Yeah,
episode.
yeah.
So you do get that thematic through line there, but then as you're watching it be like written with the like intentionally written with the deft of someone who's just read their first novel about race politics, um, you're then left going, "Oh, this is a bit weird," and then the Doctor says, "This is a bit weird," and you're left going, "Ha! Yeah, I knew it. I'm smart."
Uh, that's true. I'll talk about this now. Then I was going to do it later, but whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, again, this is something else that Hadley pointed out to me, and after thinking about it, I do kind of agree with her. She didn't exactly say this, but that moment kind of feels like a cop out, because if you've got this issue of racism, which it hasn't been like situated at the core of the episode. It's not like
No.
um uh thingy whose name I'm forgetting at the moment. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Huh?
Yeah, but it's still there. They're trying to address it, and that first scene, pretty good actually with
Mm-hmm.
the way they do it. And
Fantastic. Yeah.
there's that line. Yeah, I like the emotional intensity of it. I like the back and forth between the Doctor and Belinda, and how Belinda sort of pushes back against the Doctor's worldview. But then he says something very interesting where he says, I have toppled worlds. Sometimes I wait for people to topple their world. Until then, I live in it and I shine. Which, even if I don't entirely agree with that sentiment, it's still good to give the Doctor that kind of depth. So I really like that bit. But when you've got this meta scene that turns out to be this dark and weird twist, it's like, oh no, that's just Lux fucking with the main characters again. I think it does kind of feel like a cop out, because that issue, which has been established, and a very serious one, is to they're just sort of relegating it to this almost a twist for the sake of being a twist, and almost it just being almost a joke, to the point where I look at a scene like that and I think this feels like a twist for a twist's sake that I would expect in one of Moffat's weaker episodes. So it's not horrendous, and it certainly doesn't ruin the episode, but for me, it just feels like RTD is, I don't know, trying to be too clever for his own good.
I don't
Yeah.
know necessarily about that. Like,
Hmm.
I As far as I'm concerned, that doctor's speech where he gives him the calf in the diner is the end of the discussion of that thematic stuff for the episode. Like, it's
Yeah,
not
but to
trying to do
have
more. It's not trying to do more than that, Um,
yeah, but having that scene though, the second one I mean, like having
yeah,
a very physical confrontation of it, that just doesn't seem to work because you're expecting that confrontation to sort of escalate because again we've literally got a white cop in this theater. He's trying to lay down the horrible law. The other thing with it though is it doesn't really do much for the plot. I'm fairly convinced that if you got rid of that false reality scene or even changed it a little bit, it really wouldn't affect the plot that much, right? Because if you
well,
just went
I
from
agree with that.
yeah.
And that just brings
Yes.
it back to the whole, like, as soon as,
Yeah.
like, realistically, the Doctor and Belinda in film section should have ended when they were pulling on the frames of the film, and then they get out that way, and then you can have Ring-a-Ding's minions chasing them around, like, and then it would be a very serviceable, like, like I think the episode works better without the cop scene and the meta scene.
Yeah.
Sure. Again, purely because it gives more attention to what is the selling point, Mr. Ring-a-Ding.
Yes, let's talk about him, shall we?
We have a bit, but sure. I mean, I love him. He's so great.
Yeah,
he makes so much sense as an addition to this pantheon. He is to light and motion as Maestro was to music. Makes so much sense.
I love that speech where he's talking to the Doctor about who he is, and I haven't got all of it written down, but I've got a little bit. He says, "I'm the glint in the eye of the mad. I am the last thing you see before you fall into the abyss." And I'm like, oh man, that so gets me all excited because that's such a great speech.
I just love how Doctor Who is treating these higher beings like true Cthulhu entities.
Yeah,
like the way the Doctor describes it, like when these like higher beings look down upon our world and decide to play, like that is straight out of Lovecraft.
Oh yeah, and the best part is right because you look at the rules that they have, right?
Yes,
you could.
Oh yeah, by the way, sorry, real quick. I clocked the Harbinger thing as soon as it was in the background of one of those shots. I forget, Harvest Bringer, I think was the name of the movie, and I saw that and I immediately went, "Oh, that's a Harbinger thing." Cool.
I actually got annoyed
in that moment. I felt like one of those fictional Doctor Who fans where they were like, "Oh, come on, it's so obvious." I was like, "Aha, I got it. Maybe I am annoying."
I was annoyed. We're Doctor Who fans, Cuff, we're all annoying.
Well, yeah.
But some elements of the fan base more than others. But anyway, so and I have to admit, when I was watching it, the the "Don't make me laugh" thing, he said it over and over, and I'm really annoyed that I didn't clock that as a Harbinger reference or a Pantheon reference earlier. Because because of course if he laughs, he's going to do the creepy thing. I was annoyed I didn't see that coming sooner. But anyway, the point is with Lux, fantastic villain, really well written dialogue that's just so creative and really uncomfortable, but in the best way. That's the thing I was also going to say about the play element. So I think especially if you weren't a fan of the show or hadn't seen other episodes with the Pantheon, it would be easy to get frustrated at that because it's like, okay, well, they're older gods. Why the fuck are they obeying these rules? That's so dumb. But I think the way it's been set up, it really does work because the way I interpret it is these gods are so powerful and they're so callous and they are so fucking bored that all they can do is just play games with the lives of lesser beings. And the only way that's going to have any weight for them is for it to have rules. And the funny part, as with a lot of villains really in fiction generally, but I think particularly with Doctor Who, there is a kind of, I guess, almost like a privilege blindness to that, because they do genuinely think, even with the rules, these idiots aren't gonna destroy me. Yeah, I'm just gonna have fun with this Doctor Guy. I mean, yeah, sure, he destroyed the toy maker and trapped Maestro and killed Death literally. But Lux literally said, "Oh, I see why this all happened because the other gods left you for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there is that arrogance. It's kind of
Yeah, certainly.
it's weird. It's almost like the kind of horrifying existential dread of a Cthulhu monster. But there is that, but it's got that classic Doctor Who spin, even thematically, right? Because if this was like a Cthulhu story, if this was really like a Lovecraftian horror, for example, I think I mentioned this before, and I know you haven't read the manga or seen the show, Cuff, but the God Hand from Berserk, we would be dealing with a very different story. It would be far more disturbing, but the way RTD uses the I guess the sense of hope, really. I don't even know if it's optimism, but just pure hope that you can actually overcome these seemingly insurmountable, godlike powers, makes it really, really interesting. And it doesn't feel cheap. And as you know, I've said this before, I'm very, very put off and suspicious of overly sentimental elements in really any storytelling, but Doctor Who specifically. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels quite earned, which is really, really great. So, anyway, that's a tangent. Point is, yeah, Lux is awesome.
It's making me really want to watch the Sarah Jane Adventures, primarily for the Trickster, because apparently one of the Trickster's main things was like, I am desperate to try and find a way to get the rest of the Pantheon into this universe.
Yeah, I think I watched that one of the episodes with him in it. I don't know why. It might have been because I wanted to watch Turn Left and then watch the episode with the Trickster because they're related. But I think he does mention that, yeah, he wants to bring the Pantheon into the world, so it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at the caliber, and Alan Cumming does a fantastic job.
Yeah, I mean,
role certainly a better use of his skills and talents than King James. But when you look at like the pantheon of actors that have been playing these parts, there are some big, but like big names. There are huge names like that have come into this, like in these massive roles, right?
Yeah.
Neil Patrick Harris, obviously huge. Jinx Monsoon, big name. Sutek, I mean, not as huge a name, obviously, but Gabriel Wolf, a massive actor in Britain.
Yeah. Getting a guy who's, how old is he? Like, he's in his 90s to come back for
definitely
a role that made him quite famous in the fan base. So, oh, and also you say like caliber. These are all just really brilliant actors, really great character actors who do a lot of fun with the roles. And I know I had some criticisms of NPH's performance, but overall it worked. So yeah.
And I just love that the laugh has become a motif with these guys.
Yeah.
Because it's such one of the better things that was introduced to the Toymaker in the Giggle was that laugh. And how it's just so delightfully sing-songy, but still
and weirdly sinister, which is kind of great.
Sinister, exactly, yeah. And having that become a regular feature of these characters just makes it so that whenever a new one crops up, you just instantly get the oh no.
Yeah, and I think with something like that, it would be easy to cheapen it because I've said before, I'm not like overly using memes in a show or having like special catchphrases that can really bother me. But this is one of the examples where it completely fits, and I think as long as RTD treats it with the respect and the deliberation that it deserves, and I don't doubt that he will, it's likely to become a really, really good like calling card for these characters. I don't think there's much of a chance it's going to be cheapened or it's going to be, memed into oblivion.
No.
So
it's
think
difficult to it's difficult to meme it because it is so sound based.
Well, I mean, you could make
you can't. It's difficult to put like those like you know how like well that's all right then from the Giggle became a meme for a bit like.
Yeah. Well, I should be more clear when I say that. One, in terms of like literal memes, I think you could do like video edits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what I mean more in the not in the common colloquial sense, in the more precise sense of as in a repeating idea that crops up again and again. I don't love it when that happens in shows. It varies,
Yeah, of course.
obviously, depending on what show, but that sort of thing can bother me. But not with this one. With this one, it feels pretty pitch perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
And Alan Cumming, as you say, just brilliant.
Of course, yeah.
Like, his vocal delivery is it's on point. There's a small thing I want to mention about Lux, actually. When the Doctor and Belinda first meet him, and he's moving around, and Belinda says, "Oh, you've got your own soundtrack." He makes all these weird little sounds when he's moving,
Yeah.
and at first, like my very first reaction was, "Oh, I'm not sure how to feel about that," because they all sound like stock sounds. And I thought, is that a bit cheap? But very quickly, even on the first watch, I thought, no, that does work, because I think what Lux is doing is, in a very sort of Pantheon spirit, he's a cartoon, but he's a very grotesque facsimile of what humans think is a cartoon. So using these very cliched stock sounds actually makes the whole thing even more uncomfortable. It's like he's mocking, well, yeah, in a meta way, he's mocking the audience as he's there, dancing around. So it's kind of great.
Yeah, and it brings us on to one of the certainly the emotional through line of the episode, which is the projectionist character, and how he's again sort of like this weird victim of Lux in this like heartfelt, like it's just a really good emotional core to the episode that
And
I think carries a good deal of it. Like I love that section where he's watching the film of his late wife, and it becomes
and it comes
a
to
little
life.
bit more real, and then a bit more real, and then more real, and then it's like, I mean, I get it, dude. I understand why you're feeding this guy, because he's just like, it's one of those like Sirens on the Rocks kind of things.
Or there's even a sort of a Faustian element too. That he's been tempted by something that is like not just like gold or riches or anything, something that is genuinely understandable and tempting for most people, I think, to have the love of your life back. And I mean, God knows, a dude in the 1950s, it's not like he's going to think, oh man, the 3D effects on this movie is fucking crazy, not least of all because it's his dead wife, but still, that element makes it really interesting, and it also makes his overcoming of his desire even more powerful, really.
And his sacrifice, like
and the sacrifice, of course.
It's a great capper on the episode when he sees his wife giving him the matches. Like it's almost like for that moment and only that moment, she truly is there. Like the spirit of this person that he loves so much, telling him do the right thing. And
well, here's the interesting,
really powerful moment. That's all I wanted to say. It's just a really
no.
I really enjoy it.
Well, and here's the thing, right? That moment where she seems to literally show up, and she's not a horrible figment of Lux's creation. It's certainly possible that that's just like a picture into this dude's mind to see that, this is him making the right moral choice. This is what his wife would want. But I wonder even if this isn't another instance of residual, Pantheon energy. Because I remember when we watched The Devil's Chord, and it came to the musical scene at the end, and I complained about it, and I thought, I don't know, like, does that, like, I love the song, but does that really make sense? But then you pointed out, no, it does, because the way these Pantheon gods work, they always leave a little bit of magic, for want of a better word, behind. Now that I've seen this episode, I think that case is even stronger, because, well, one, it's just more consistent, but also having that, the magic sort of manifesting in this powerful moment, it makes me believe in the sort of magic of the Pantheon a bit more, even if it's happening for more positive outcomes, which the Pantheon gods may not intend. But you know what I mean? I think I certainly think it's very easy to interpret that final scene with his wife is just his psychological state. But I also think my theory is just as valid. I think it could easily be more Pantheon magic.
Yeah, certainly. And the guy does a great job with it. The actor that is, I think I looked up. I think his name is Linus Roach.
Yeah, it was good.
Really good actor. He didn't oversell it. It was
Yeah.
very easy to ham it up too much, especially something this lovey-dovey. But he plays it really grounded. My heart was like genuinely like in my throat when Lux was threatening to burn the film with his wife on it, and he was just like pleading for like mercy in that regard. Like he completely sold me. It was really great.
Yeah, it was a good performance, for sure.
Something else this episode does, and I think it definitely is like it's not a subtle thing, but it's definitely fades into the background at certain points, and that's rebuilding trust between the Doctor and Belinda.
I wanted to discuss that actually, but anyway, yeah, you continue.
Well, yeah, it's a thing this episode needed to do because obviously Belinda can't go home straight away, but we still want to have Doctor Who adventures. So you need to find a way to get Belinda from a place of I take me home immediately, I don't trust you, onto okay, get me home, but if you need to do your thing while we're doing that, I'll join you, and I get it and I understand and I trust you.
To go from get back in the TARDIS to come on Velma.
Exactly, yeah. It's an important leap to take. And I think, by and large, the episode does that really well. I do like that there is that brief hesitance at the start where she's like, okay, so you got the Vindicator or whatever it is, you got it working. We can go. And then, of course, the Doctor's curiosity and wants to help would convince him to stay, but then there's convincing Belinda of that. And by the end, you've got she's sort of won around to his worldview. Where
she literally says, "Yes, I trust you now." By the end,
yeah, exactly. And I think you would, right? Like seeing, what the things that he does, and I think especially, and this might work back into the thematic nature of that meta scene, but like seeing the fans of the show, so to speak, and how much they've done for him or he's done for them rather.
Yeah, I suppose. I think it is done pretty well, and I think if I have any issues with that story arc, it's more of a personal thing. So the way I feel about it is like at first I thought, well, is it completely authentic for Belinda to go from not trusting the Doctor to trusting him in essentially the span of an episode? And I thought maybe not, but then I realized, it still does make sense. But I think for me, the issue is it may still make sense, but I personally would have preferred it if that trust was more hard won. Right? I would have preferred it if that gaining of trust was more gradual throughout the season. But again, that's more of a personal thing.
I would be very surprised if this is a one and done situation where it's like, okay, from now on, she's just going to be behaving like Ruby and following.
Yeah, that's true. I don't doubt that we're going to revert a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's still very likely that Belinda will challenge the Doctor on things, but I think
for sure.
I think this is more of a rather than I trust you implicitly. This is an I trust you enough to feel safe around you. I think that's more of what it is.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that makes sense. I think for me it was that very it wasn't terrible, but that very blatant line where she literally says, "Yes, I trust you." I think she even says like, correct me if I'm wrong, but something like "now and forever" or something like that. I might be getting that wrong.
I think you might be. I don't remember that.
Yeah. But either way, she literally says, "Yes, I trust you now." So, and it was obviously a very emotional scene, and it makes sense because it's at the climax of the story, and it's. They've been through a lot of peril together, but I think that line being that intense, I thought, are we going to lose that mistrust? Are we going to lose that sense of conflict between them? I hope not, because I want to see more of it. But I think you're right. It's highly unlikely they're just going to say, "Oh, okay, that character conflict's done now. Doesn't matter." No, I think especially with RTD's generally style of writing characters, I'm sure he's going to come back to this, right?
Sure. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And I think the only thing I want to highlight is we do get a cheeky Mrs. Flood at the end of this, which is interesting. It's the first time we've seen her not in modern day London. I have no idea. She directly calls attention to May 23rd or 24th, 2025. Yeah. May 24th, 2025. She calls attention
to that.
Which
is the day that the final episode of the season airs, so more meta stuff.
I think second last.
So the beginning of the finale.
Yeah, the part 1 of the finale airs on.
Yeah, okay, that
May 24th.
That makes sense. I'll tell you what's something funny about that, right? There's a comedic element to it, and when she says, "Oh, you better watch it soon because it's show ends on May 24th," I know that that's a joke, and I know that that's not literally going to happen. But for the briefest moment, I was actually a little bit nervous. I don't know why, but at the very least, so it's promising something that's going to be pretty full on. We've already seen the Earth essentially blown up at the end of that first episode, so whatever is going to happen, it must be pretty big. And I'm now starting to come over to your side in your theory that Mrs. Flood might be the big.
I think it's unlikely that this is a tease for something else. Now that we've seen her twice in a row, and she has directly stepped out of the only world we've ever seen her in, I'm almost 100% positive that Mrs. Flood will be the big bad. I am in fact going to give myself those points now. With the knowledge we can take them back at any point, these aren't
no, that's fine. Yeah. But even with the context of season 1, her involvement in the show and her seriousness, I guess, in the way she was involved in the show escalated, leading up to that finale. So the fact we've had that, and now we've got her venturing outside of Earth in that time period, as you say, I think it's an indication that something's going on here. And
yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's possible that she could be foreshadowing maybe another threat that's related to her, but I really do think it's probably going to be her as the main threat at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, I'm just... I mean, I suppose we can talk about Mr. Ring-a-Ding's demise. We didn't really do that. That's the last thing I think is worth particular attention in this discussion.
I guess I will say, again, kudos to Virata Setu and Ncuti Gatwa in their great performances. Really good.
Of course, I do like how when they're animated, they do put on that slightly exaggerated cartoon voice.
Yeah, that was interesting because I thought at first it annoyed me because I'm like, oh god, this seems very, very cliche. It's a trailer moment, right? Like you know what I mean. Like you look at it and it's like, oh haha, they're cartoons and they're acting dumb and wacky, and you've got that line about Belinda having that waistline and whatever. But when the doctor said, where our brains are 2D or we're thinking in 2D, I'm like, okay, now that makes sense. And this is another thing they have to overcome in the game that Lux is setting up. So that was actually pretty cool.
And I like that it leads to the discussion about Gallifrey.
Yeah. Like it becomes more serious and quite smoothly. Which is good. But anyway, yes, Lux's demise, or was it?
His ascension.
Yes, his ascension.
I like it. I think when you look past the sheer absurdity of giant Mr. Ring-a-Ding becoming the cosmos, I think it makes a lot of sense.
To be fair, there are way more ridiculous images and concepts in Doctor Who than a giant cartoon floating into space. God, that's bizarre to say.
Well, yeah. But again, this is a concept that has come up before a bunch, like drowning in the thing that powers you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder what that's a callback to. That's... And with the moon, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, both times it was light.
Yeah. Very interesting. But yeah, I think yeah, I enjoyed that ending. And
I do as well. And you know why I think it works for me is that it is a quick way of getting rid of the threat, but it doesn't cheapen the threat because it's just like
no,
he became so powerful that it
yeah.
was we simply cannot fathom it, and he's it's almost like he's like returning to the outer realms that all of these pantheon gods come from in the first place.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were a little bit vague because you're not 100% sure. Like, is he like literally God now? Has he completely disappeared because he says, he says something like, I'm
And
becoming
everything and nothing.
nothing or something like
Yeah.
that. But even though it is vague, you don't need a lot of explanation for it. You get the impression, and as you say, it doesn't feel cheap or confusing. Like, I got to the end of that and I wasn't thinking, huh? That doesn't make any sense, because it does. It does make sense, I think. And
Yeah,
it's also
totally.
innovative in the sense that if you look at a villain like Mr. Ring-a-Ding and a lot of the, especially more powerful villains in Doctor Who, you'd be expecting some kind of either like a really intense comeuppance or them to be trapped somewhere. But the fact that they, in a weird way, got what they want and they became almost more, like Lux became almost more mellow by the end. That was interesting, different, and pretty satisfying.
But I also think that, and just thinking about it now, I didn't even think about this before, but it is incredibly consistent with how these elder gods have been defeated. You know, the Toymaker was brought down by a game. Maestro rather, was defeated by music. Death was brought to death, and finally light drowned
Lux
in light.
became in light.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Like, it's so internally consistent, and I love it for that.
Also, a small thing, it's kind of funny that at the beginning, the actual cartoon that Mr. Ring-a-Ding is in, it's basically a parody of Betty Boop.
Yeah, of course.
Both in the character that he's with, but also the animation looks like an old school Fleischer cartoon, which is just kind of funny.
Yeah.
Also, there's another bit, and I could be wrong, but where they're watching, a movie is playing, a live action movie, and it's like a western, and they've got all these sound effects. I have a feeling that's actually a silent movie, and in the post production of the episode, they've just put a sound effects because the sound effects sound
modern.
Yeah, well, not sort of, maybe not modern, but like there's a cliched element to them.
Right. Okay.
It's like, oh, you'd really expect these sort of sound effects. The other reasons I think it might be a silent film is one, just the way the film looks, like the speed it's moving at, and the film stock looks kind of like a silent movie. And also, and I might be wrong on this, but I think at the time, sound recording technology in cinema was still at a state where filming outside wasn't particularly useful. Like it happened.
Yeah.
But it was harder to get good soundtracks, I think, outside. It may have been not as bad then as it was in the 1930s, but I'm pretty sure. I want to say that there's a movie called the Treasure of Sierra Madre. I want to say that was filmed mostly on a set. So the point is, if you've got a film that's very clearly set outside, that's black and white, that looks like that, it's going to be a silent film because they didn't have to worry about soundtracks back then, and you used to have crazy, big scenes set outside. So anyway, a small little tidbit, I guess. But yeah, yeah, I actually don't think there's much more to discuss here, unless you've.
No, I think we're done.
Yeah.
In terms of ratings, the annoying Doctor Who fans in this episode's mid-credits scene gave it a 7 out of 10, and I think they were bang on the money. I'm going to give this a 7.
Yeah, same. It wasn't as good on the second watch as it was on the first, but I think that's mainly because I was just totally swept away with Lux as a villain. And the fact that he doesn't show up, again, it didn't terribly disappoint me, but knowing the rest of the episode and what it was, the second time watching it was like, I felt like, okay, this is what it is now. This is the fun part, totally. This is the okay part, and here's the bits that don't even really work that well, so yes, I think a 7 is pretty fair.
Yeah,
like, let me put it this way. Mr. Ring-a-Ding is like a 9 out of 10 villain, but the episode itself is 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I
If that makes any
completely
sense.
agree with that sentiment. I completely agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
Looking at our point tallies so far, I'm currently ahead 3,500 to 250.
Mhm.
Anything is subject to change. There's still a very good chance you win the entire thing. But
We'll see.
we'll find out. Next
Mm.
time on the podcast, we'll be reviewing the episode called "The Well," which, based on the Next Time trailer, looks like Alien/Aliens in terms of like tone, and
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I'm excited for something potentially a bit darker.
Yeah, I think after this episode, it being so cartoonish, as grim as it did get, I think that'll be quite an interesting contrast. I will say, it seems to have some echoes to the Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit, mainly with the whole descending into a hole situation. Hopefully, not just in terms of concepts, but even in tone, they won't fully replicate those two previous episodes because they were so
Oh
good.
yeah,
But I don't think RTD is going to do that. I think RTD is
I
smart enough
disagree.
not
Yeah,
to. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting at the very least.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm
But
pretty keen for it.
until then, I'm Alex,
I'm Fitz,
and
and I'm Mr. Ring a Ding. I love to sing, and I don't know the words, but that's okay because I can sing pretty good. And I'm gonna stop now because this is so embarrassing.
I'm glad you had the courage to attempt that. I definitely
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't know. I'm the kind of person. If I don't know the words, I'm keeping my goddamn mouth shut. So I'm glad you're here to bring some bravery to the podcast.
Yes, yes. I mean, yes. God forbid, Cuff, you had to do some improv. I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I had to. I'm sorry. That's a joke. Not a very good one, but anyway.